Platner finally withdrew from the race for Senate after briefly holding the party at proverbial gunpoint following mass calls for him to withdraw after he was publicly accused of essaying an ex-girlfriend. The news of these allegations were devastating to all the supporters who championed Platner for his pro-working class platform, and completely unsurprising to those of us who'd been scratching our heads wondering how an ex-mercenary with a Nazi tattoo who bragged about killing people shot to prominence among leftists and progressives in the first place. But even more confusing than how he obtained the support of the progressive left and people in institutions like Bernie Sanders and the DSA is how he maintained that support even after several scandals clearly indicated he was not who his stated platform purported him to be. That's what I really want to get to the bottom of. And to do so, I spoke to Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report, Lance of the Serfs, and Too Raw, Too Real to help me figure it out. My name is Olay, and this is OSQUARED. So the first thing we've got to establish is, who is Graham Platner and where did he come from?
He kind of came out of nowhere. He very clearly wasn't vetted, but I don't know how he...
I know the origin story is not true. The one that he's coming from kind of, lower class, hardworking farmer.
Yeah, I know he's wealthy.
He comes from a wealthy family, so that also erases the you
wealthy
did tourism
murderer.
duty uniquely because the
you know they used to come from a wealthy family and want to go to war, like because
Right?
you want to
Yeah.
kill people. Like you would assume it's this like working class white background that he like went to war. That makes it even sicker. Because that's like a true, it was already sick because he'd already expressed that he wanted to kill people. Like that was, we already knew that. But the fact that you're a rich guy, like you're a wealthy white guy decides to go to war because he wants to kill people. If you didn't know who Graham Platner was before clicking on this video or why he's in the news right now, this is your summary. Graham Platner is a 41-year-old former Marine who was the Democratic nominee running for Senate in Maine against Susan Collins. Platner quite literally just got into politics in 2025 when he was asked to run by community groups who evidently saw it for him. Despite being brand new to politics, the streets loved him. Platner was endorsed by everybody and their mama, from Bernie Sanders to Elizabeth Warren to Ro Khanna to the DSA, all of whom have now rescinded their endorsements and called for him to withdraw from the race. It's worth mentioning that AOC declined to endorse Platner and was criticized for not doing so. That aged well for her. Platner became so popular, he easily won the Democratic primary in June 2026. The thing I never truly understood is why.
So I think that the obvious reason why he's popular is because he has a very progressive platform. He supports Medicare for all, opposes the genocide in Palestine, wants to cut off the weapons to Israel. So pretty standard progressive positions. On top of that, this is more of an unsaid thing. I think that he codes as Republican, which is a plus to a lot of people. You know, when you look at liberal candidates and progressives even, they come off as overly technocratic, nerdy, like someone like me, right? Who's like, I don't want to vote for that guy. Look at him. But with Graham Platner, he's like this straight alpha male. You know, he's not a pussy. So he kind of subverts expectations for what we expect on the left. So there's that appeal as well. He's also just kind of like, he's a reasonably intelligent person who can speak well. So juxtaposing him against Susan Collins and then Janet Mills, it's like, yeah, it seems like a really easy bet.
Being in white male patriarchy is a problem regardless of what party you might identify as. And we need to start really unpacking that. We really need to start rethinking how we choose candidates. And also, I don't know if you actually paid attention, there's this guy, he's also part of DSA. He actually recruited Graham Platner, which is funny. One of the big heads in the DSA movement, his name is Dan Morath, I do believe. He actually recruited him and said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do a semi-background check, which they didn't even do the real vetting process. Normally, vetting process can take up to a couple of weeks, and they spend about almost $20,000, and they just run through all the things you've ever done, said, anything you've ever, whether you've enlisted, what jobs you've had, who you were married to, past relationships. They do a full background check on your ass, okay? They could do a full sweep. They expedited this shit in 3 days.
I mean, we want people who didn't run for student council, right? We want people who have not been spending their entire lives planning their ascent to political power.
But a string of controversies have triggered questions over whether Platner was thoroughly vetted before entering the race. You hadn't vetted Graham Platner. You hadn't done a full scrub of who he is. How did you go about vetting him?
We paid a nice firm a whole chunk of money and got some stuff back. Some of what you've seen on the news we got back. Other stuff we didn't.
Did the vetting process turn up the tattoo that became so controversial?
No.
The Reddit posts, did that turn up in the vetting process?
The firm sent us a thing, and it had some of the posts, but it didn't have all of them.
And what did you think about that? How did you think your way through the fact that he had posted these things on social media?
I said none of this will or should stop him from becoming a U.S. senator.
And what was your thinking there?
Agree. I think if what the voters wanted were people who were grown in vats and had never done or said anything that they might regret their entire lives, we'd have a very different country. Part of our thesis here is that people do not want their candidates grown in vats. They want people who are real human beings, and they want people who do not look and sound like the vat-grown people who've been leading this country off a cliff for the last century. And that was Graham.
They didn't even try to do their due diligence. They just said, this is the white man. We don't give a f. We're going to field test this shit. I don't care how egregious his past may be. They're going to pick the whitest, safest bet, and this is the man that can do it.
You might think that because people were so sold on Platner, that means there weren't any warning signs. But you would be wrong. There were many reasons Graham Platner should have given us pause.
The problem, however, with Graham Platner is that aside from the Nazi tattoo, and the thing that really was a sticking point for me is that he talked about his vet service in his announcement video. He didn't serve one tour and then get out, because this is supposed to, he kind of presented himself as, or it was implied rather, because I don't know that he was really that explicit about this, but there's this idea that he was one of these anti-war vets who got out disillusioned and really wanted to change the system after witnessing what he saw. The problem with that narrative is that it's completely fabricated, and I think a lot of people projected what they wanted to on him. So he served not one, not two, not three, but 4 tours, and then he went to work for Blackwater. And when I say that he served like 4 tours, he wasn't like a receptionist, he wasn't a medic, like he was in Fallujah and Abu Ghraib. And it's not just that he very clearly was addicted to violence. He went on Reddit. We have all the Reddit posts where he would talk about how he just fucking loved killing. He's to be fair, he said, I don't love killing, but the reward that comes with it.
I saw a post today, like, of him being like, he was really looking forward to killing people, or the adrenaline. I seen him be like, I'm looking forward to being a murderer. Like,
yes. Very, very explicit. Like, I love killing people. There's nothing like it. There's no feeling in the world that even comes close. I love fucking killing people. It's amazing. And there were so many tweets like this. And then the Blackwater. And then here's where I think that things get murky. So you can see the Reddit posts where he's talking about this privately, but also there's so many things in his history that lead you to believe, well, maybe this redemption arc is true. When he was 19 years old, I believe, he protested Bush because of the Iraq War. So that's commendable, right? Problem is that like 6 months later, he's like, I want to fight in that war now and kill brown people. So, right. There's so much there. And then the Blackwater thing. You know, he claims he never worked for Blackwater. He worked for Constellus, which, to be clear, is Blackwater. He was never really pushed on this by any of the independent media shows that brought him on, which I was really disappointed in, because there's so much wishy-washiness there. It's an obvious lie that this should be like, hey, you have to explain this. You know, there's no reason for this discrepancy. If you really are anti-war, you've got to explain this one, because Blackwater, this is War Crimes Incorporated. It's a PMC that committed war crimes. Trump pardoned Blackwater war criminals. Platner worked for them during Trump's first term. And, you know, if you go back to these old newspaper clippings of Maine, there's a picture of him wearing his Blackwater hat where he's saying, yeah, I wear it to get a rise out of people who are mad about their heavy-handed tactics, in the mean streets of Baghdad. And to be clear, he didn't say that. That's how the article presented it. So he told them that, and they're paraphrasing what he said. Right. On top of that, you see him in pictures with the Blackwater magnet on his fridge, next to his pro-Israel influencer brother who published a book on how Israel is okay to commit genocide and destroy their neighbors. And that's not relevant. Like, you can't control who your brother is. But, you know, for being against genocide, it's weird that he inexplicably, on October 7th of 2025, you know, says that all the Israeli hostages needs to be released and for the war to end, not calling it a genocide then, you know, not talking about the Palestinian hostages. And hours later, after seeing that leftists were displeased, saying, yeah, it's a genocide. So he's just all over the place. And the thing that is really difficult for me just personally to overlook is he likes murdering people. So if you like murdering people, then there's going to be literally nothing that is beneath you. Maybe you'll torture someone. I would rather be tortured than murdered. So that's less, like, everything on the scale, is beneath murder, right? So of course, other types of violent crimes, such as rape, that's also not going to be surprising.
As far as Graham Platner goes, I just believe that he is their white knight. They've been waiting for somebody who, on paper, has all of the things that all of their values, right? But however, with that type of past, isn't that not problematic? Everything that y'all claim to be about when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable, believing women, protecting the most marginalized, making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, and making sure that we're not offending someone. But for someone who says that you're anti-genocide but has a tattoo on one's body that represents a genocide of another person, it's an oxymoron. It's like, what are we doing here?
He was perfectly positioned to make everyone have a moral stance where they could yell at one another, right? Like, if you, like Mike was saying, if you oppose him, you're a Zionist, you're a shitlib, you're promoting Susan Collins, or you're promoting genocide because he's the one who's going to be anti-genocide. So you. And it's like, he participated in colonial imperial bloodbaths. That man, like, this is not a dude who was just like a medic in the back of a tent waiting to help people. This was a dude who was bragging about how great it is to slaughter other human beings. So I know why everyone was upset at watching what was happening. I think things just ramped up when all of a sudden, like, those first scandals dropped. Well, I'm not even talking about the fucking the totem comp.
What I find fascinating about Graham Platner is that every white leftist I know, just about, there are a small handful of exceptions, but just about every one of them was a diehard Graham Platner. And I never looked into why or why not, because all I saw was a Nazi tattoo, and I said, I don't really feel like there's anything else I need to know. Which one?
You were asking about his Nazi tattoo. It's not a little. It was a little thing. It's like this big. It was huge. It was bigger than like an actual child's skull, and it was like right here, and it was the symbol that every Nazi had on their hats and their belts. Like, goddamn, that is the most recognizable skull. It's so different. And like, again, we got played down. Like, everyone's like, he was drunk in Croatia. Just a bunch of soldiers. He was drunk?
That was the excuse?
He was drunk in Croatia.
That's what you came up with, that he got a Nazi tattoo because he was drunk?
It's just a Marine thing, okay? You wouldn't understand. It's a Marine thing.
You're a civilian. You don't get it, all right?
Yeah.
Civilians don't know what it's like to be in the poop and all that shit, right? And you're like, that sounds really bad, okay? Like, I know for a fact that they knew what skulls they were picking out.
Guy says he's going to war because he wants to kill people. Guy at war killing brown people. Guy gets Nazi tattoo, and it's just, you think that there's no relation between that tattoo and who he is?
And Mike, for how long? How long did he have it? Like, how long was that?
It was like almost 2 decades. And listen, call me crazy, okay? Pretend for a second that it wasn't a Nazi tattoo. It was just the skull and crossbones. If you look at the response video that was applauded by a lot of people, he's like, yeah, my military buddies and I, we just wanted to get something that symbolized our time in Iraq, so we got a scary-looking skull tattoo. It's like, so you want to symbolize on your body a skull to commemorate, like, all the deaths that you had brought about. That, to me, okay, if you didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo, that to me still is very disturbing because it shows that, like, you were proud of the killing that you did, reinforcing the post that he made where he said, yes, I was proud of the killing that I did, essentially. And it's baffling to me that is, that's acceptable. A lot of people, I think that the default position for a lot of leftists were like, I'm willing to buy that he didn't know at the time when he got it. Sure, we can accept that. We don't know. We don't know. But, you know, he probably found out at some
Did he
point in
think
time.
that we want us to believe that it was he went to the tattoo salon and it was one of the tattoos just like on the wall to choose from, like when they have the general sample?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Like,
Or did you see people we know and respect playing it down? Be like, who amongst us has not done a couple things they regret when they were younger? Or who, like, how are we even to know if he knew that was the correct symbol or stuff like that? And I was like, even if I had the best of faith, I believe you that he was wasted, had no idea what it was. 2 decades down the road, like not a single human, like you get that shit lasered off the next morning. Like you have a symbol of Nazism on your chest right here emblazoned for the world to see. Like, goddamn, right?
And he's going to be pissed that he got it, you know, removed for nothing because now he's got to drop out. He probably liked his Nazi tattoo.
He was drunk. It's always funny how they always use that. He was drunk. He got that tattoo when he was drunk. Oh, he was drunk when he was doing them Reddit posts. Oh, he was drunk when he was holding his ex-girlfriend hostage and abusing her verbally. He was drunk when he said when somebody would break into their house, he would sexually assault them. He's waiting for the day that somebody tries to be a home invader and break into his house so he could assault them. And he didn't even say man, woman, or child. He said anybody that come in the house, he'll get them.
during the course of his campaign, Graham Platner faced repeated allegations, including but not limited to being a Nazi, an adulterer, a physical and sexual abuser. In May 2026, the New York Times and other news outlets reported that in 2025, his wife told a senior campaign aide that he'd been sexting multiple other women. Platner's own campaign political director, Genevieve McDonald, alleged that his wife said he sexted as many as a dozen women. A campaign official said he'd been communicating with no more than 6, and that the conduct had stopped before his campaign launched. His wife said that the matter had resolved through counseling. Child, which is the mildest of the accusations. That's just good old-fashioned adultery. But at this point in the video, we should know who Graham Platner is and understand why his platform became so popular with the left. But we should also know that there absolutely were warning signs. So the question becomes, why didn't we heed them? Or more specifically, why didn't the white left heed them? Because that's the majority of who continued to champion him, even as we learned more and more disturbing information. The white left in particular has a class reductionist blind spot. Like they get very excited for pro-workers' rights arguments that they like, you know what I mean? Oh, we're all united in class. And if we fight on the level of class, we don't have to worry about race and these other things.
Exactly. So these were red flags that a lot of people tried to present. And when I say a lot of people, to be very, very clear, people who are not white. There were a couple of white leftists that, you know, kind of pressed pause and denounced him. But primarily, this was a lot of black leftists and Middle Eastern leftists. And anytime these objections were brought up, I was really disappointed that, like, there was this disingenuous vote blue no matter who coded argument where it's like, shut the fuck up, he's against genocide. It's like, yeah, and that's, you know, objectively speaking, I think you could probably make a harm reduction argument pretty persuasively, you know, against him versus Janet Mills, him versus Susan Collins. But it's a little bit weird that, like, all of the Palestinian leftists are fuck Graham Platner all the way because they see that, hey, he was okay with killing brown people, so you're using Palestinians as a defense for this white man. It doesn't really add up. There's a disconnect there. Like, why is Graham Platner okay but the IDF bad when he probably killed more people? He decided to volunteer multiple times. There's a lot of things that have been rubbing me the wrong way about this story because of the way that leftists just overlook those red flags.
Yeah, because my thing is this. I don't understand what it matters, what he says, or what his platform allegedly is on paper when it's obviously so inconsistent with what his record and his life experiences appear to be. And I'm confused because it's like we live in the era of being hyper tuned into grifter to you know what I mean, grifter, charlatan. Why are we taking why do people believe so, like, what does it matter what his platform appears to be? Why do we believe that that's genuine when all these other things, what does it matter if he says he's against genocide and he's against, you know, what Israel is doing, if his record says that, you know what I mean? And what does it matter what he says? Why is there so much stock in what he says rather than what he appears to be?
But this isn't the first time that they've done this and overlooked racism, because they overlook it every time when it comes to people of color, marginalized communities. Being anti-black or being racist is not their hard line in the sand for them. We saw this before in 2021 when John Fetterman was running. I recall a number of us black people out here sounding the alarms about John Fetterman when we found out that when he was mayor, he chased down an unarmed black man. Now, I don't know how one can justify that as somebody's action, saying, oh, well, this is in the past and he's learned since then. What behooved him to take it upon himself to be a vigilante? His ass is Batman when in fact he's just a fat ass ogre. But
Right.
he's more Shrek than he is Batman. But he thinks, oh, let me go chase down a black man who I see so happen to be running. From what I'm not sure, but because I see a black man running, that looks suspicious to me. Let me go inside, grab my shotgun, get in my car, and drive and hold this black man hostage until the police arrives.
Yeah.
What
And they're like,
justification was that? When black people said that this is a problem, that racism should be your hard line, because here's the situation. If somebody's racist, look at the intersection when that happens. When somebody's racist, more than likely they're misogynist. If they're misogynist, more than likely they're xenophobic. If they're xenophobic, then more than likely they're anti-immigrant. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You see the intersectionalities. If somebody hates black people, or if somebody has a prejudice that's built into them, then more than likely you're going to see more and more red flags come out about how horrible of a human person this person could be.
yeah.
But for some odd reason, that didn't bother them, because all they heard was they support Medicare for all. All they heard is they are self-proclaimed communists. All they heard was, oh, this person wants to liberate the Palestinians and wants to dismantle, the occupation of Israel, which I agree with all of those things. But however, when you're a horrible person, why do I give a
As a leftist and an abolitionist, I would understand if I believed it was happening on the level of, we believe, we redemption. If we want people, we recognize that people grow up in this society and they're gonna have bad views, and we want people to yada 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 yada. But that don't apply nowhere else but with these white guys, because I'm like, it's interesting to me as somebody that we just had a 2024 presidential election when there was like no space. They had no space, grace for any argument that said, hey, let's like really prioritize keeping the fascists out of office. It was all Kamala's a cop, Kamala's a this. I don't want to hear nothing else about yada, 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 yada. She was a prosecutor. Yeah. And like, it's just interesting to me for that to exist alongside, well, let's ignore the fact that this guy appears to be a racist. Let's ignore the fact that this guy has been accused of violence. This guy's I think I hear people say he's a mercenary, eh?
Yes. You say that they say that they're
anti-cop.
Come on. He bragged about it, actually. He bragged about killing people. He said he loved winning, which required killing. So, come on, red flags there. But none of that was a problem, because when you're white, there's this thing called nuance. But when you a nigga, there's no such thing as nuance. I keep telling people that over and over again. There is no nuance when it comes to niggas. And I don't understand what that's about. But it goes to this other point, because even when somebody says that, on paper, Graham Platner pretty much checks all their boxes. And low key, the way some of these people be acting and these people be moving, I don't think racism is not one of those things that they want to check on the box, because they will continuously ignore it. Right now, I just saw clips of Anna Kasparian and Jen Wigger on TYT pretty much victim shaming this woman, saying, well, why didn't she go to the police? Why didn't she file a replete report? Why didn't she get a hit? And I'm over here arguing in the comments like, do you not know how many women have actually done all of the things that you're claiming, went and filed a police report, went and had a hit done?
In my mind, and the reason why I feel like my brain is so broken from this is I feel like this was one of the easier moral tests for a lot of leftists, and they failed. And now I'm thinking, okay, we really have to hash this out, because what happens 10 years down the line, we get a progressive ICE agent. I was in ICE, I regret it. Do we give them a pass? Do we give an IDF agent, or IDF soldier rather, a pass? Do we give a cop a pass? Where do we draw the line? Because if we're not drawing the line at Blackwater mercenary who enjoyed killing people, I feel like there's just no line. There's no standards. We have absolutely zero standards. Anybody can come in, infiltrate the movement, hijack it, as Platner kind of did. Like, he was the face of the movement for a lot of people. If that's the case, we're kind of just doomed. Like, this isn't long for this world. It's going to fizzle out at some point, because if you don't have any moral core, or you deviate away from that and you make exceptions for people like Platner with all these red flags, and you pretend like the red flags don't exist, like, you are going to up. And that's not to say that you have to get it right 100% of the time. I've said hundreds of things across the 11 years that I've been doing this that I wish I could take back. But what matters is that you grow. You learn from our ups in the past and you grow. We just saw Tulsi Gabbard. We just saw John Fetterman. We have to apply what we have learned. Otherwise, we're just going to faceplant. We're going to get rolled by the establishment. I mean, you see AIPAC right now. They're not just funding Zionist candidates. They're doing ads for progressive anti-Zionist candidates to split the Zionist vote. We have no choice but to get more savvy and acknowledge that there's something deeper about what we're fighting for than just like the superficial, I support Medicare for all and an end to the genocide. There has to be more than that. There needs to be evidence that you are committed to this. Not like, oh, hey, I said this one thing on Reddit that like fascists are bad. That's not enough. There needs to be a real concrete record of you walking the walk or whatever. Just like, you can't just be like, hey man, yeah, there's a bunch of red flags. He talked about killing people, but like, he also said that he's a communist on Reddit. I don't give a shit.
I find it so like convenient. And I can't help but find it just so interesting because like when you think about it on the heels of like the presidential election, when many of us who don't love Kamala are not diehard Democrats or don't support the Democratic establishment or anything are like, hey, we should vote for Kamala. We should do what you were saying, that a lot of the arguments that people are saying that we're saying to like die on the hill for Platner resembled vote blue matter no matter who. When those same arguments were being made about Black people, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen to, like, fascism. This is going to happen about racism. This is what Donald Trump and them want. This is the xenophobia, all of this. It was, oh, your blue MAGA, liberal shows, vote blue no matter who is nonsense. You need to earn our vote. She was a cop. She was a this. She said that. It was all this. Everything. It was no matter. When people said, oh, well, Kamala says she's anti-genocide, or she's anti-genocide. She says this, she says that. No one cared when it was like, oh, well, she was a cop. She was a this. The record mattered then. All these different things. It's just interesting to see that and then turn around. Like even the other day, there was a race in California where like the left loved the billionaire. And I was like, that's funny. You know what I mean? Like it's funny to me when these exceptions are willing to be made. Whenever the white left likes somebody that doesn't fit the bill or is in like violation of all the things we were just told like are absolute non-negotiables, it's fine. It's all of a sudden it becomes like we can make the progressive exception. But when it's the other way around, when it's a Black candidate, when it's this, all of a sudden it's like, y'all are fucking blue MAGA, identity politics, woke liberal shills holding everybody back. I'm like, you mean to tell me that Platner's written word, his stated platform rises above all this shit? This is the guy? But Kamala was like, I'm like, really? Really? Like we to prosecutor, to cop in jail, and I enjoy murdering brown people. Like it's just so funny to me. Like I can't help but be like, am I tripping for seeing this? And I'm like, you start to feel like you're in the upside down when it's like, well, if I say this, they're gonna jump me. But damn, he's got a Nazi tie. Like I can't.
Look, I know they're sick of it when it comes to identity politics, but the reason why they pick Graham Platner is because of identity politics. The reason why they pick James Tallarico is because identity politics. He's a white male. You would have never imagine, in my Dominique Morgan voice, imagine if this was a Black woman or a Black male. Remember, everybody was getting ready to attack my damn Governor Westmore for being on a list that ain't got shit to do with him just because he went to an event as a publisher, because he had a #1 book bestseller at the time where they asked him to come speak, and he only spoke once. And the time that he showed up, what's name wasn't even there. So I don't know. It's just wild. Everybody was quick to jump the gun on Westmore, but all these red flags of Graham Platner, child, we just gonna brush that off. That was in the past.
I'm glad that you also brought up Fetterman, because I think that was a really good, big inflection point. At least for me, it was. Before anybody comments, Mike thinks he's white savior. No, I'm saying that we have a lot of blind spots as white people in the United States of America, and you have to constantly try to check yourself and try to remove yourself from your own subjectivity. So on the subject of Fetterman, I was one of the people who dick rode John Fetterman. And yes, I knew about the red flags. I knew that he chased down a Black person with a gun as the mayor. And I thought, well, maybe it was a one-off. Maybe it was just, I was able to use my privilege to just shoo that away.
He apologized for it. He learned the error of his ways.
Yeah, exactly. It's the pretty little lies that we tell ourselves because it's like, hey, man, Dr. Oz is a loser. But I had to eat shit and take a big L because of that. And from that experience, my L, seeing, the error of my privileged ass ways and how tone deaf it was for me to promote him so enthusiastically, I learned and thought, okay, the Platner one is easy. We just did this a couple of years ago.
This is harder. I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
I seen an easy layup.
Yeah. And so the fact that we just got Fetterman, we just got Tulsied, we haven't applied anything that we've learned, and it really it stresses me out to think about that because the left, we're in such a vulnerable position because of this. We can get motherfucking rolled. The CIA could just put out some random white dude and be like, I support Medicare for all and an end to the genocide, and we'd all vote for him.
That's such a good point. It doesn't even matter if Platner was a plant, like some people are saying. I don't think he is, just to be clear.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter because of how effective it has been at getting so many groups to fight each other.
Yeah.
If you were on the outside, just say for conspiracy's sake, if you were someone who was like, I want to promote the U.S.-Israeli war machine and relationship, and I've noticed right now in the U.S. there's a lot of groups that are gaining traction and winning political battles in New York, in certain small races, and those are unapologetic people who are saying straight up, abolish Israel. That's the thing you can say as a politician, and it's not like a death sentence. They are actually actively right now getting elected. Well, then how do we get all of these groups without power to fight one another? How do I get white leftists to talk over black leftists and to talk over their opinions and condescend to them and get them fighting online instead of fighting a greater power or a power structure? How do I do that? How do I get indigenous leftists to fight with black leftists? How do I get Asian leftists to fight with indigenous leftists? How do I get gay people to fight with straight people to fight with asexual people? And we're all doing that online, even right now, even in this podcast right now. And he wasn't a plant, but man, if you were learning from this, if I took a seat back and I was just like, well, that works.
Take some other notes, COINTELPRO.
Yeah, right. All those people who are all we need to free Palestine, we need to fight against emancipation, liberation internationally. We're not free until we all are. They're all fighting each other right now for free. For free. It doesn't cost money.
Right.
I think this is the reason is they don't have to do it. It doesn't have to be COINTELPRO because there is just a general theme, and I've said this on a regular basis, of white leftists talking over everybody else on the left and deciding that they aren't, which is funny.
I want to talk right now. It's my turn.
So much of leftist tradition is black leftist tradition. That's the reality. But somehow you have white leftists, a lot of white leftists learn these things, read a couple of books, read the books by the brown guy, read the books by the white guy, and then they start taking it and they erase race. They treat it as all these intersections. It becomes everybody screaming, having to scream because they say, Frank, we don't need to hear it. We like this guy. I once talked to y'all about this before when I playfully said, there's a Bernie bro with a MAGA pipeline. But there is this element of and it's probably tied to, white masculinity and patriarchy, this and the next thing, where it's actually coming from and why that exists. But there is a connection between these people, these white leftists that are seemingly so progressive. I always care about pro-workers this, anti-imperialism this, but always seem to guy, you know what I mean? Like characters that are so obviously problematic in all these other ways and dismissive and subjugative to other groups within that fall under this leftist umbrella. There is something there.
Yeah, there's this implicit, it kind of goes back to your class reductionist point, right? There's this implicit assumption by a lot of leftists that, listen, you could just ignore racism, and if you give everybody Medicare for all, you improve their material conditions, then the racism will just fizzle out.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is
they have trickled down in economics to racism and socialism.
No, that's precisely it. Yeah, the problem is that is super duper unrealistic, and the problem is you actually can't get socialism or communism if you try to skip that step of ignoring racism. Because there are so many white people in this country who will happily be poor forever so long as black people and people of color don't get anything. And I've seen this. It really, I've never considered myself a class reductionist, but it really stuck with me seeing my own family who are MAGA members. I have a family member who is on Medicaid, food stamps, directly fucked over by Donald Trump, but because we have a trans family member that they wanted to fuck over, they happily voted against their own self-interest. So you can't skip that step and just like go straight to, hey man, just a rising tide will lift all boats. You actually have to kill racism in this country. I'm not saying kill white people, just before I get clipped out.
But I do think what you're speaking to is that the left has a whiteness, not white people, not about white people or white people as any individual, but the left has the same whiteness problem that the right has. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like when we think like, oh, they're voting against their own interests, but no, they aren't. When your interest is whiteness, fundamentally white supremacy, that kind of structure, that's why it is. And to me, that's why you see a lot and why it can't be eliminated. When they say, oh, we're going to focus on workers' rights, it's like they've decided they don't want to contend with a reality where people do see their interests as whiteness and upholding this kind of structure and this social inequality. And so they're like, oh, I'm going to focus on workers' rights and socialism. And if we all get on board in this, we don't need to handle sexism and misogyny and white supremacy and all that is fundamental. And also, to me, to that whiteness problem, it shows up in you say, oh, you're pro, you think you're progressive, you're the most progressive, you're on the left. You want these pro-workers, this socialism, X, Y, Z, but you want it in the form of still white guys that have this traditional fucked up looking like masculine. It's the same way you're like, oh, because he's coded right wing, like he's coded right wing, he's coded Republican. That's what because you're still chasing these ideas of masculinity and desirability and all these things that are still steeped in whiteness,
and
which
Western
is steeped in patriarchy and misogyny. You reproduce these kinds of outcomes because that's what happens when you say, oh, well, he has pro-workers position, he has Medicare for all, he has all of this and da-da-da-da-da, but he gives me all the toxic masculinity and stuff I like. So what do you get from there? Like, what do you think made it toxic? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't even believe, I think for me, the issue with Platner isn't even just that, oh, he has this past and just like, oh, it's not like a symbolically like, oh, I just don't believe somebody who had a past like this should be No, I believe this is present. I don't believe that he is whatever views they are so moved by. Do not believe that he has any intention of going into office and being a leftist dream. I don't believe it.
I don't believe that. He's a John Fetterman. Let's just call a thing a thing. I remember when we was popping off about John Fetterman and they were using the same exact talking points that they did before for John Fetterman that they're doing right now for Platner. I'm like, y'all don't see this pattern here? I remember when we warned y'all about Tulsi, y'all brushed that shit off. We warned you about Fetterman, y'all brushed that shit off. We warned you about Platner, y'all brushed that shit off. I mean, how many times? Just listen to niggas, okay? Just listen to niggas. We know. We know instinctually. I can smell prejudice, okay? What we talking about? I grew up in a South. I know a saltine when I see one. That's why my blood pressure's so high. All the sodium.
I find it interesting, the refusal to learn from experience, because I've seen like, oh, the John Fetterman like swing you, Kristen Sinema swing you, these different candidates. Like, why is it like, to me, for even if you were somebody who like, for you don't give a about racism, you don't care about this, those aren't deal breakers for you. You believe him when he say, oh, this Nazi tattoo was yesterday, I've changed. These are now my views that I have on paper. But like, how does it not make you pause? How does it not give you pause that to think maybe this person isn't being 100%. Like, why do you have so much faith that their views on paper are what they say they are when all this real world shit, like this, their real tattoo, his real words, his real war record, his real shit he's doing. Why do those things matter less to you in terms of what you evaluate these? Because like my thing is, I could see if you believed 1000%, oh, regardless of whatever when he's in office, he's going to do this leftist shit on paper. Why do you believe that on paper shit when reality is actually this thing? Why does that feel like a safe gamble to die on the hill for this dude?
Because when you're in the quest of power, right? You're questing for power. None of that shit matters. Right now, these people saw this as a power grab. Like, okay, Janet Mills is out. We're going to beat Susan Collins. We have somebody who on paper matches everything. Who gives a because at the end of the day, it's interesting that they will sit here and call anybody that was black, calling out Graham Platner for his past behavior, which honestly wasn't that damn long ago. Child, he just cheated on his wife in 2023, so just 2 years ago. That was 3 years ago. I mean, my God, that was just yesterday. But when we're calling these people out, they were calling us Blue MAGA, right?
Yeah.
But in actuality, their actions saying that it doesn't matter what Graham Platner does, I care about his policies. You sound like MAGA. You
Right.
sound like the very definition that you're claiming us when we said vote no blue no matter who. We're not saying that. We're saying that whoever the Democratic nominee is, we need to back them, even if we don't agree with them 100% when it comes to policy. But however, this is a non-negotiable for me. I cannot support somebody who is racist. I cannot support somebody who's misogynistic. I cannot support somebody who was a apologist already and then turns out has been accused of sexual assault. Like, I cannot do that. I cannot let that go. Those are hard lines for me because it only gets worse. And why it would only get worse is because he has been beyond reproach all the way up till now. I mean, we got a long list of receipts of what this man has done and accusations. I mean, every day it seemed like there was something new about Graham Platner that we didn't want to know. And every time that something came out, he said, oh, nothing else is going to come out. Nothing else is going to come up. I promise. This is it. This is it. Okay? But when we're looking at all of these things, you have to take a minute to step back and pause and be like, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate my values. If somebody keeps coming with more and more and more baggage, why would I continue to back this person?
Yeah.
Regardless if on paper they agree with the same policies, but I don't agree with what you choose to do. When somebody becomes a senator and when somebody goes into elected office with this power trip, like I'm beyond reproach, nobody can ever check me, they got this godlike complex. What the do you think about to happen? What do you think he might do to his staffers? What do you think might also happen? We already saw this just happen with Eric Swalwell raggedy ass.
In June 2026, the New York Times reported allegations that Platner engaged in disturbing and physically threatening behavior towards a woman he dated. A former girlfriend that the New York Times described as a Virginia conservative who's worked for far right-leaning groups and Republican campaigns alleged that Platner had grabbed her repeatedly with enough force to leave marks and once twisted her arm behind her back, pushed her into a room, and locked her in that room against her will until morning. Platner, of course, denied these allegations and called them politically motivated. I could have sworn I saw allegations
there was
of
his ex-girlfriend who worked for she worked for the Heritage Foundation, same people who wrote Project 2025, which
First
is
of all,
another red
let's pause
flag
right
for
there.
me.
His ex, he has a Nazi tattoo, and his ex-girlfriend worked for the Heritage Foundation. And there are quotes of him talking about the joy, like he was looking forward to going to war to kill people. Like, how is this? Like, I don't understand.
They said that, oh, well, this is a way that they're trying to take him down. You know, she worked for the Heritage. They were using the Heritage Foundation as a negative against her, but I'm like, it's more of a negative against him. If this person doesn't represent your values, your quote unquote values, she worked for the Heritage Foundation and she's a conservative, why would you want to jump into that? Like, my values, look, if you ain't with my values, I'm not jumping into your vagina if you ain't got my values.
Right. Yes, but Nazi tattoo and Heritage Foundation are like completely like right here.
Well, and it's not just that they went so hard for him. And I'm not going to name any names, but some of the arguments that I saw made me want to kill myself. Like, people were essentially saying, who among us hasn't worked for a private mercenary? Okay, one person I will name, because it drives me nuts. Ryan Grimm, I love you. I love your work. Brother, the anti-white racism line, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I saw that clip, and I'm like, I'm going to end myself right now. To say
was it
that,
a clip? I thought it was just text. I thought it was just a written tweet. Did he say it with his mouth?
No, he's got I mean, we should almost just watch it on.
I kind of feel like we should watch it because I name dropped him. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to start any shit.
Right now. Talking about this for a long time, and
it's a flip side of back in the early 2010s, and 2000s, when the gay rights movement was gaining steam. What
the Barney Frank argument?
What people discovered, is that you've got a gay uncle. You actually, once people started coming out of the closet,
the Andrew Sullivan argument.
Once people started coming out of the closet, like, oh, that guy's gay. I love that guy. He's great, and my life is fine around him. This is the reverse.
Wait, is that what he thinks happened in the gay rights movement? Let me just read. I didn't even. And I gotta hear that again because what people started coming out, we were like, "Great, we love them." It's fine.
It's as bad as you think it is.
Early 2010s, and 2000s, when the gay rights movement was gaining steam. What
the Barney Frank argument?
What people discovered, is that you've got a gay uncle. You actually, once people started coming out of the closet,
the Andrew Sullivan argument.
Once people started coming out of the closet, like, oh, that guy's gay? I love that guy. He's great.
You know, hold on. I'm sorry. Before I even continue, I had to repeat it here twice because to make sure I'm not tripping. You know how crazy that is? That suggests that like we didn't know, like the people in our lives, like we didn't know they were gay. Like people were identifying people as gay whether they said it or not and mistreating them. What do you mean? Like it suggests that like, oh, people were only talking shit about thought they didn't like gays because they thought they didn't know any of them. And then once you found out, because the movement it came in style. It became cool to be gay. And then we're like, oh shit, my faves are gay. Right, rather than reality, which was like, oh, people know their loved ones are gay, and so now they abuse them and throw them out of the home and mistreat them and force them into like...
Which has never happened to a white guy for being white. That's like...
Well,
so
speak
weird.
for yourself, Lance. Listen, when I told my family I'm gay, they're like, oh, we love you, we accept you. And then when I'm like, also, I'm white, they're like, get the fuck out of my house.
I have no son.
It's crazy because I'm assuming I haven't heard the crazy part of
And
this
my life
message
is
yet. But
fine
here to
around
rest.
him. This is the reverse for liberals. It's like, this is a white guy, and he's actually pretty nice.
A big burly combat vet.
Big burly combat vet.
Someone
and
you
he's
could
in
see
your
with
family.
Joe Rogan.
And he's fine. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Like the
Don't be afraid. Don't be scared of the guy that kills people. The one that's excited about
Yeah, in
murdering
hindsight, woof. Yeah, you thought this was a bad take before. It has aged horrifiquely.
The
That's
nasty tattoos.
so wild.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't enjoy murdering people, even if he just did murder people for four tours, like who would think I feel really safe against this big, comfortable killer?
Yeah.
Like that's
Also,
such a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
And this is in a world that white politicians have to worry about, where it's just like, oh, I got to tiptoe around this. I don't know if I'll have to come out as white to my fellow colleagues here, but once they find out, they'll treat me different. You don't know what it's like to be treated different for the way you look, okay? It's so fucked up. Like, what?
I'm bummed that this is Ryan.
I know. I'm very disappointed in him,
I'm
Ryan.
bummed because I'm like, Ryan, I gotta play the rest of this, and I'm like, I made an executive decision to hold my punches because Ryan Grimm has never been anything but sweet to me.
He's brilliant, yeah.
And drop site news is important. That's why I keep saying like, you're only as good as your last album. Like in terms of like what drop site news actually does, that is so critical to getting Western audiences to see the horrifying like war crimes and atrocities their own country commits. So like that in my mind, and I said that before I ripped into this clip for how fucking tone deaf and frankly homophobic and racist it is. But anyways, it's like he's now today doing even worse like stuff where he's trying to he's using drop site to talk about the sexual assault allegations towards Graham Platner, and specifically that drop site reporters, the Politico reporters failed to mention that she had, this is the survivor by the way, she had told and texted Graham Platner that she was looking for a massage. And why didn't they include that piece of information? That's pretty like, journalistic malpractice. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Let me
current cultural divorce between kind of progressives and white men is so like stark. That it's just culturally, morally, ethically wrong, but also just pragmatically from a political perspective. You can't build a national.
It's culturally, morally, ethically.
What is he even like? Is there an anti-white movement in the left? I'm just curious.
I wish.
Shut up, colonizer.
In fact, this whole conversation is about the fact that there isn't, and how that's really the Achilles heel of the left. It's the white left and their love of the white man. That's all of his
to be frank, what he's expressing here is fatigue in having to talk about whiteness and unpack white. That's what it is.
Right,
like,
that's what it is.
It's a. You know what it's like to stand in a group of people wondering whether or not they're going to call you a colonizer or a settler or something like that. It's like, this doesn't happen. This like, there's no scenario in which DSA members sit down like, all right, first, all the white people, identify yourselves, stand up before me now, admonish your whiteness, admit to your micro, like no, this doesn't happen. This shit is.
If only non-white people knew what it was like to be judged for the color of their skin, the burden we carry. I mean, like
that it is. It's just culturally, morally, ethically wrong, but also just pragmatically from a political perspective. You can't build a national party.
Yeah.
If you assume every white guy or every white guy with a deep voice is a combat vet or whatever, is like out to get you.
Or if you talk about him in a way that implies he does have sort of built-in problems.
Right.
So
just inherent toxicity or something.
Yeah, whether
you can't build a national party.
Yeah.
If you assume every white guy, or every white guy with a deep voice is a combat vet or whatever.
If you assume every white guy with a deep voice is a combat veteran, this one is. Like the one you're saying now is like the cuddle bug. like what are you talking about? Who's assuming anything?
All the avatars to choose.
Like, what are you saying?
If that was your argument, then choose a good person to represent it, right? Like, even if in the best of faith, like you're talking about how, like, in some cases people have prejudged a white person for whatever reason, which I don't think is the thing that happens. But if it was, just to give him that, then why the would you pick Platner? Of all people to
because that's the kind of masculinity they like. To what Mike said from the beginning, like that's what they want. They don't want the good example is quite literally the problem they have. Like they don't want this pussy ass example of white manhood of what they aspire. That's what it is. So like that's the reality. Is like the actual disconnect here is that they fundamentally. What we are critiquing is what they want. And like, that's it. It's that simple as what you're critiquing as racist and misogynistic and as violent and as an upholder of imperialism, all those different things. We like it. We like it. I've been taught to like it. I see it as the peak of masculinity. And I want there to be a world where that is embraced again. And this guy representing all those things, but being like championed by progressives, I think makes this bullshit popular again. Because again, Republican coded. And so that's why they like it. Like, the problem is that the problematicness is exactly of it. Like, it's not like a byproduct, like a mistake. Like, oh, damn, because you happen to choose this guy, now you've got to deal with all this, like, these issues you're going to have to defend around. It's like, no, the issues are why they chose the guy. Like, that's why they like it.
Yeah, that's a sad thing that we have to, unfortunately, digest. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's so true. It's like, yeah, I'm not just annoyed that, you keep bringing up that he killed brown people. I think that is badass. He's like fucking Rambo. He's a superhero, that's something that voters are going to think is based and really cool.
The Taliban.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fucking hard ass, and I aspire to be the alpha that he is. It's just, listen, one thing that I will say to close the book on Ryan Grimm is I'll recommend a book to Ryan Grimm. It's called Blackwater by Jeremy Scahill, Ryan Grimm's co-host, where he talks about all the crimes that they committed. And if Ryan reads that book, I am positive that he will come away realizing that those of us on the left who are also white, as a white man, we're not criticizing Platner because he is white. We're criticizing him because he is a murderer who loves murdering. And I feel like if you can't see that, if you're so obtuse and so up your own ass that you can't interpret that criticism from good faith leftists as good faith, then you need to like get your head checked. You might have brain damage, maybe you got a stroke. I'm sorry, like are we being serious? We're talking about anti-white racism on the left. Like, what are we even fucking doing?
Even after the allegations of domestic violence, being a Nazi and more, Platner held on to the steadfast support from leftists and other progressives and people like Ryan Grimm, who I should mention is a really nice guy that I've worked with before on The Hills Rising, has only ever been extremely kind towards me, and whom I generally respect, even though I do not agree with him at all where Platner or anti-white racism is concerned. But Platner held on to the support of people who chose to believe him when he insisted he had no more dirty laundry to be exposed, until finally falling out of favor with most of even his most loyal supporters after the latest essay allegations. On July 6, 2026, a week before the deadline for candidates to withdraw from the 2026 U.S. Senate race in Maine, Politico published an account by a woman Platner had dated, accusing him of raping her while he was drunk in late 2021. The accuser said she hadn't previously publicized the incident because she did not want to be publicly known as a victim and because she felt torn about making the allegations since she shared his politics. However, she felt compelled to come forward due to the allegations of relationship misconduct made against Platner in June because she realized that this is probably a pattern after hearing multiple women accuse him of things. So she came forward, and she also shared with Politico a set of Facebook messages from 2023 in which she told a third party about the incident. Platner denied the accusation, again calling it a politically motivated attack to derail his campaign. But the allegations didn't stop there. On July 7th, 2026, the Washington Post reported that another woman who used to date Platner alleged that he would take condoms off during sex without her consent. When she confronted him both during and after sex, she alleged that he would make light of the situation. She claimed that Platner had done this about 6 times during the relationship. So that made 3 different women to publicly accuse Platner of physical or sexual abuse. And after a year of people ignoring all the obvious problems with this man, it was those allegations that finally led his supporters to call for him to withdraw from the race. What I find hilarious is that despite the immediate calls for his withdrawal from everybody and their mama, Platner initially refused. Now he has the party, he holding them at gunpoint, refusing his resignation.
He is. Did you see the video recently of the main Democratic Party saying, he got us held hostage, we need him gone, what can we do? He's saying he want to pick the person who's going to replace him. That's not how this works, bro.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to provide you all an update on the U.S. Senate race here in Maine. As you know, the Maine Democratic Party has been working around the clock to develop a process to replace our U.S. Senate nominee that is open, inclusive, transparent, and fair. The integrity of this process is just as important as the outcome, and we are committed to ensuring that Democrats across our state can have confidence in both. Unfortunately, Graham Platner's team has repeatedly reached out to us in an attempt to put their thumb on the scale of what this process looks like. We have repeatedly reiterated to Graham Platner's team that they have no role in determining our next Democratic nominee for the US Senate, nor in determining what this process looks like. We have also reiterated that Graham Platner must drop out of this race so that Democrats in Maine can focus on defeating Susan Collins this November. We look forward to making this process public as soon as Graham Platner formally withdraws from this race.
You've seen some of the kinds of gymnastics that folks were doing to continue supporting Platner, even after serious allegations began emerging, which is why I was surprised to see the swift and mass condemnation we saw following these most recent essay allegations. I'm even surprised that people were surprised by the allegations, because this is a man who in 2013 wrote on Reddit that people worried about being essayed should take some responsibility for themselves and not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to. He later blamed those remarks on his struggle with PTSD, a bullshit excuse people readily accepted. But I find that remark completely consistent with somebody who's being accused of his ex-girlfriend while she was drunk. So again, I ask, if being accused of DV, a Nazi tattoo, and tons of old messages, comments, tweets, and Reddit posts exposed his many, many dangerous views, why was this the straw that broke the camel's back? The thing that confuses me is if they decide to look past that he's killed a bunch of people, that he's expressed his joy for killing, the Blackwater Nazi tattoo, I think there are DV allegations. Why does anybody even, why is this the thing that has made people give a fuck? Because
that is the devastating point. That's the most devastating point at all. It's where they're drawing the line, Olay. That, to me, as a white person, can I use that card? As a white guy, it is a very poor look to be. Yeah, it's a bad look for us, we'll say, if you're like, I don't give a fuck about him killing brown people. Oh, he hurt a white person. He victimized a white person. Now we draw the line. That is a horrible look. I don't think anybody has reckoned with how bad that looks, not just to black comrades in America, but internationally speaking. It makes us look so self-centered, Western chauvinist, and racist. It is mortifying to see that, and to see nobody really grapple with the reality and like sit on it and think, why was it okay for him to kill brown people in my mind, but it's not okay for him to have a victim who's white? Of course, I'm glad that they're drawing the line and they're calling him out. But like where you draw the line, it says a lot about your blind spots, I think. And that's the thing that was really bugging me about leftists who did support him and really went to bat for him. It's not just like, hey, I'm supporting him because who else is there? It's like, no, he's our fucking guy. I'm ride or die for him. That's what's really bothering me, because it's such a horrible look. I feel like, how do we recover from this? Who would ever want to work with white leftists again? We're untrustworthy. We're duplicitous.
But Platner did finally resign on July 9th, 2026. And in that resignation, he continued to deny all wrongdoing, and he took absolutely zero accountability for the position his campaign, and the Democrats now find themselves in as a result.
We are suspending campaign operations. This is incredibly difficult because I know that some will think it's an admission of guilt, and it most certainly is not. We're not doing it because of the allegations. We're doing it because of the structures that are being taken away from us by those in power. And I also feel an immense amount of responsibility to everyone who has worked so hard to get us to where we are. We did it the right way. We built a campaign. We engaged in electoral politics. We motivated people. And now they are not going to let us have it. Not if it's me. And so we're suspending campaign operations. I want to make clear, though, I intend to file my paperwork to withdraw. The process needs to assure that what comes next is reflective of the Mainers who on June 9th turned out and showed that they are desperate for a different kind of politics. It needs to be driven not from back rooms, but by the will of the people.
But the thing that's really f***ed up is that Graham Platner's actions don't just affect him or even just his alleged victims. He's hurt the Democratic Party. The DSA, whose support for him could unfortunately overshadow the slew of legitimately progressive black and brown candidates they've endorsed that have won their seats. And he's hurt the people who supported him, the majority of whom are on the progressive left, and backed him because of the beliefs he espoused that they believed he truly believed. What do you say to the people who are going to be like, oh, see, this the Democrats yet again, not doing their due diligence and waiting to the last minute, like how Joe left Kamala with 2 seconds to campaign. What do you say to those people who could talk like that?
This is a different situation. I can blame the Democratic Party for Joe, but I cannot blame the Democratic Party for this shit right here, because here's the situation. Janet Mills dropped out, didn't even wait for the primary, and she got the hell up out of there. She was gone. Everybody rallied behind him. I was getting all types of texts and bullying from all these leftists and all these white centrists telling me, you need to support Graham. You need to support. I don't give a no. I told them hell no. I said, I'm not doing that. Nazi tattoo. I don't want no Nazi titty.
They're having a bunch of, it's so unfortunate that this white guy overshadows like all these positive brown and black progressive wins, like the DSA and all this have been doing such amazing work. And here go. And that's what's also kind of frustrating. It's like, there can be all this movement on the ground for like legitimate, true black and brown progressives really doing shit. And the guy and who they want to fucking be gun-ho is the fucking white Nazi. That's how you let everybody look bad for. It's like now everybody has egg on their face. But there was so many opportunities not to have. I don't get it. I'm like
it was raining eggs. Yeah.
It was raining eggs.
What are black leftists or progressive people of color supposed to think after all this? That is really going to depend, or at least I thought that was going to be dependent on how everyone handled the aftermath of this, because I think everyone could have used this as an opportunity to make, like, we could build and become better from this, I'd say, just as a collective. Progressive commentators, podcasters, Twitch streamers, all that. If we acknowledged parts of what went wrong here and how to do better, then it could be like a growing experience. I'm not even saying that, like, I'm not a person who's like, every one of them should line up and absolve themselves, stand up and absolve their whiteness before me. I want to see them check their truths and shit like that. It's not that, but it's just like, if you're going to ignore everything that, like, Mike mentioned at the very start of this, the horrifying war crimes, atrocities, imperialism, and shit that is like devastating people in other countries, that was all totally fine. And then you got to the point where I don't know why, outside of like the soldier stuff or maybe personal friend connections, people championed him, because the championing part is what made everything infinitely worse. Is just the last couple of months, especially like the last scandal of his prior to the direct accusation of sexual assault involved a lot of very inappropriate sexual behavior. You can, classify it as sex pest, as an abuser, as a stalker, weird stuff, but it was not just a definitive, like, he had sexually assaulted me statement by someone. And like the defense that he got from that alone, right? Like, I don't think it's only people of color that would be owed an apology in this case. It's women as well, because now we're in a position where the very same people are making all these statements. Like, when that last article came out, people were like mocking it, being like, grab him by the Platner. He could sext my mom and I wouldn't care, haha. Because everyone kind of got this in their head that it's kind of like a you moment. Like, I'm tired of playing defense all the time. I'm tired of having these fascist assholes, Trump, etc., and destroying the planet, being assholes and having faced no consequences, zero for the actions. And we're supposed to be better. I'm supposed to be like an act better. you. Like, I finally have an opportunity to have my own attack dog and be like, all of you. Yeah, no scandal can take him down. This man is invincible. It's all about working class sloppiness, that kind of shit, right? That was really the attitude that a lot of people were doing, and it was for the worst possible person, because now you can't come back from this. Like, Nazi tattoo. I still keep on thinking. I'm sorry, it was so huge. I've seen children with smaller skulls. Like, it's so wild.
Y'all know your girl has merch, right? That's right. The Illuminativerse has merch, so you can rep your favorite channel. Whether you're an Illuminati pop girl like myself, an Olay and chill enthusiast like my baby sister, an Olay and friends stan like all my friends, or somebody who locks in for my 2-hour Illuminati productions, we've got something for you. We've got mugs, shirts, and hats. It's all very cute because Cartoon Me is adorable. Shout out to Tuner Tariq for being the man behind her. And to my pop watchers in particular, please know that you wore me down and I finally gave y'all the shoot me with your big gun merch that y'all kept begging for. Look how cute your shoot me with your big gun merch is. Oh my God, to be an Illuminati pop girly. I genuinely love my merch. Not just because it's mine, but because I ordered everything myself before showing it to y'all so that I could make sure the quality was good, because I can't have y'all spending y'all hard-earned money on garbage. Which is why I am pleased to report that I now have a cupboard full of the most beautiful glossy mugs and a drawer full of the comfiest Illuminati shirts. So if you've ever wanted to support the channel, rep your favorite corner of the Illuminativerse, or just walk around with my cartoon face on your chest like a true Illuminati fan, check out the merch store linked in the description below, or go to illuminati-shop.fourthwall.com, or use the QR code on screen to make sure you get your Illuminati merch today. That's illuminati-shop.fourthwall.com, or click the link in the description, or use the QR code on screen to run me your money today. Now let's get back to the video. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, congratulations! You've officially wandered into the Illuminativerse. Now before you get overwhelmed, let me explain where exactly you've landed, because apparently one YouTube channel was not enough for me. If you're looking for my biggest productions, the kinds of videos that require me to disappear into a cave for 6 weeks and emerge with an existential crisis, subscribe to Illuminati, my flagship channel, where you'll find my magnum opuses like If Pretty is a Privilege, Ugly is a Curse, How This Didn't Age Well Destroyed Media Literacy, How Men Become Aziz Ansari, Why Serial Killers Aren't Monsters, and so much more. If you're here because you love television, movies, and hearing me explain why everybody misunderstood your favorite character, subscribe to Illuminati Pop, my TV and film essay channel. That's where you'll find fun deep dives on How I Met Your Mother, Sex and the City, Desperate Housewives, You, Euphoria, Insecure, Girlfriends, and more. And if you'd like to watch my videos uncensored, get early access, and support the channel directly, just join the Illuminati Pop Patreon. If you are looking for chaos and a good time, subscribe to Olay and Chill, where I unpack reality TV, TikTok drama, documentaries, chaos in internet, and whatever nonsense the internet has cooked up this week. If you'd like to watch me and some of my favorite Black creators and thinkers come together to discuss the culture, subscribe to Olay and Friends. If you're looking for shorter commentary on whatever the internet is currently spiraling about or whatever's on my mind, subscribe to Illuminati Bites. If you want to watch me and my bitch Kenny JD laugh, overshare, talk a little shit, and unpack the messiness of life, love, and the internet, and whatever foolishness we watching, subscribe to Olay and Kenny. If politics is more your thing and where you know me from, subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my State of the Union like addresses on OSQUARED. And if music is your thing and you want to hear what I think about the latest albums and what I'm getting into, subscribe to Illuminati Extras. Subscribe to whichever corners of the Illuminativerse speak to you, or subscribe to all of them and become a full-time resident. And while you're at it, you can follow me everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Twitter at Illuminati. You can also follow Illuminati Pop and Olay and Chill and Olay and Friends on social media so you never miss a thing. Welcome again to the Illuminativerse. Now go look around a little bit, make yourself at home.